This is a, well, first of all, I want to thank Yale and Hollywood very, very much for coming. This is a panel nominally about the best and the brightest of film that I wrote and directed. My name is Josh Shelov. The great Kate Mulgrew is in the film. Very kind enough to join us. And my great old friend and fellow Yale 93er Ted Mazer composed the score, and he is I recognize many of your faces from the screening that we had yesterday, and I'm thrilled. It was so exciting, not just the reception of the film, but the conversation that went deep into the night afterwards. I have no agenda whatsoever. I would love to talk about anything and everything, not just about the best and the brightest, but about filmmaking in general, and your own thoughts and questions and aspirations and experiences. And please, you know, with your questions to Kate, if I may, they certainly don't need to be limited to the best and the brightest. Kate has many fans who are here today.
You may ask me personal questions.
I'm sorry, I should say that there are two other Yaleys who were integral to the making of the film. My co-writer Michael Yeager, also class of '93, and the mighty John Hodgman, who's also '93 or '94? '93, thank you. Whom is obviously a significant celebrity. He acts in the film and steals the show for a little bit in the middle. And now I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
So the question is, you talked yesterday about how much the ad-libs on the spot from the actresses added energy to the film. And how did you manage the dual role of both being a director and handling rewrites? Did you have to do a lot of rewrites of your own script?
There were no significant rewrites during the immediate pre-production and shooting of the film. There were moment-to-moment inspirations from many of the great actors involved, and that's a very easy process of hearing something brilliant out of one of their mouths and then being in a fortunate position to record it. And then when you're in the editing room, you include it. It wasn't one of those films like a Christopher Guest picture or what I understand of Judd Apatow pictures, where they rely heavily on improvisation, pardon me, to great end to actually achieve the bulk of the dialogue. We had a pretty set script that we I would say largely stuck to.
Yeah, it's too difficult otherwise, you know, in post to put it all together if the actors are all over the place. So I thought we were pretty traditional in our approach.
I think so too. Yeah. It was a good old-fashioned picture.
It was a good script.
Yes.
So I thought that your actors worked together really well.
Yeah, you didn't see the behind the scenes, but that's okay.
I was curious as to how you picked them. Did you have them three lines together?
Very good question.
Indeed. Well, there were, I mentioned yesterday, I'm going to rehash some of the comments from yesterday, if you all don't mind, that I may never be so fortunate as to have as much influence over the casting process as I did in this, but I was able to fortunately just pick based on, you know, the people who inspired me, fortunately. And that's true of my behind-the-scenes collaborators as well, such as Ted. I heard through our casting director that Kate Mulgrew liked the script, and literally, you know, the moment that I heard that she had liked it, it was, you know, it was just a gigantic, you know, once-in-a-lifetime thrill. So that was very, very easy, you know, and such is true of. I think the majority of people, we were pretty lucky. You know, we were an independent film, so you know we weren't dealing with the Will Smiths of the world. But those.
Neil, how did you go after
Neil Patrick, it was a very fortunate, you know, thing where we were rep by the same agency. You know, it was kind of a schmoozy Hollywood situation. Neil, well, full disclosure, Neil would not have done the film had Amy not already been attached. That was his great attraction to it, besides the brilliance of the writing. When Amy and I are both represented by the Paradigm Agency. Have you ever heard, I don't have representation of the Paradigm? So that allowed, when Amy read the script and I met with her and she signed on, a lot of casting happened very, very quickly after that, including Neil, which, you know, heated things up afresh. So, does that answer your question? I got really lucky.
Talk a little bit about the process from, you know, inception to getting an idea. I don't know if you mentioned that yesterday.
No, please. The macro narrative is essentially that my co-writer Michael and I wrote the script in 2007. And we very much wanted to write farce, and we felt like farce was an underrepresented genre in comedy. So many romantic comedies are out there, and we really wanted to do a movie that just sort of cut loose in the Fish Called Wanda kind of style. It took us about 6 months to write. We have worked together for many years and have known each other for 20 years. And it was a delightful writing process, writing with Michael. It took us about a year of begging until we got fortunate enough, and I mean remarkably fortunate, because it was the moment of the financial crisis when our lead investors, Patty and Robert Weiser, a husband and a wife team in Philadelphia, who had made a documentary with my good friend Alex Buono. That was a very lateral sentence, but was it followable? All right. Alex, another filmmaker, introduced me to these incredible people who, as I mentioned, at the moment when all the world was in a panic, they gave us our startup financing in 2008, and we quote unquote sealed the deal at Sundance 2009. So no, I'm a year off, I think. I apologize. Sundance 2008. And then after that, they found the rest of the financing through some of their colleagues, and then the casting began in the fall-winter of 08-09. Amy, Neil, Kate, everyone signed on, I think, essentially within the 4 or 5 months period. We shot the film in June, July of 2009, largely in Philadelphia. They have a great film program, a great tax incentive program, which means they basically pay you to film there, which is a wonderful benefit. And many states will do that. And then we edited the picture for a year. The inspiring and delightful process of scoring the film happened in early 2010, and then we finished the film up around mid-year 2010, and now is culminating the process of getting distribution for the film. Our distributors are domestically a great company called New Video, who will be releasing the film on all formats on August 16th. We'll be doing a theatrical run of the film, at least in New York and LA, in July, and
Dubuque.
And Dubuque. And I think that's pretty much the story. I mean, we have international distribution through a company called Echo Bridge. That was long-winded, but that is the story. Thank you.
This might be, I don't know, just, you don't have to answer, but what was the budget and how many production days did you shoot?
I blabbed about this yesterday, so what the hell. It was $3.5 million, and we shot for 26 days, 23 of which were in Philadelphia, and then we basically stole New York for 3 days, and you know, the first half hour of the film or so has a couple of real money shots of New York, Fifth Avenue, Central Park, that kind of thing. That sort of sells the idea of being in New York. Every shot that you see in the film that is an interior shot is in Philadelphia. Yeah. Elizabeth.
Can you talk a little bit about the process? I'm sorry, that's all right. Can you talk a little bit about the process of scoring the film? Did you come with specific ideas to Ted?
Sure.
Yep.
Wow. It's, I think what I love about film music is the collaborative process. So it's what sets you apart, being a composer, just sitting in your room and saying, I have an idea, I have this thing I have to say. As opposed to that, you have a collaborative process where, for us, and it can start in many different ways, but, we're old friends. Josh sent me a script and said, if I send you the script to the Best and the Brightest, I said, no. I read it, thought it was really funny. I said, have I mentioned Neil Patrick Harris is interested in the lead role? I said, no. And you know, as much as I trust Joss, until this thing happens, you don't know that it's going to happen. So when it happened, I came and I visited the set, and I kind of got a feel for what was going on. And you know, it just looked good. I started thinking about ideas. We started talking about, you know, for example, what ideas would need themes. How many themes did we have in this? We had, do you remember? I don't remember. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
We
had like different character themes.
Yeah, like we had the main theme, which was sort of Bonnie's theme. Mm-hmm. Then we had when she gets angry theme, you know, the bird thing. Right? Yeah. We had music for Jenna a lot, and you know, it's sort of identifying what, you know, it's like architecture. It's sort of putting on a general blueprint. Where are we going to do things that we can grasp onto that will kind of create a through line and underpinning of emotionally what we want the audience to kind of be feeling. So to make it a little shorter, basically, at a certain point I started getting cuts from Josh. So I got a rough cut. You know, I started getting said, oh, this looks great. We started sending, I think we started with the main theme, the opening cue. A cue is just an instance of music in a film. It's the longest cue I've ever written for a film. It's like 6 minutes. And it's not like pads and sort of quiet piano stuff. It's full orchestra. And so it was daunting, and we had a lot of back and forth. In the middle of all that, you know, I have a setup in my home studio where I can emulate an orchestra. I send it back and forth to Josh. He says, I like that, I don't like that. You know, we need to feel more of what she's going through there. You know, when we get here, you're a little too strong. Can you hit that cut there when the car hits the street, you know? So the way I view my role is essentially, what is the film trying to do? You know, I'm a supporting player here. What's the film trying to do? What do you want the scene to accomplish? And we look at it and we say, well, is it doing it? If it's doing it 100%, there's no need for music. I don't want to be there. You know, if it's doing it 85%, music sort of fits in very nicely. You know, sometimes I have a really big job, and it's like, you know, maybe we didn't get quite the performance we wanted. You know, but in this case, okay, so a little disclaimer. I don't get out much. I say all the wrong things, but usually nobody's there to listen because So what I meant by that is most of the time we did get the performance we wanted. It's a freaking great film. Okay? But what I'm saying is, there's a moment maybe where it's like she didn't get sad enough. It could be, you could really accent the funny. Have I said too much? Is this good? And so, you know, give me a little more flute there to make people feel fluty. I don't know, something like that. So, anyway, I could go on forever, but, you know, is that enough? You want more? What do we got? Yeah.
Oh, well. Ted's work speaks for itself. Better than, no. I mean, it was really like one of the most phenomenal creative contributions to the film is Ted's score. Yeah, we did. Kate asked if we met at Yale, and indeed we did. We were both.
Are you the same year?
We are?
Yeah, we were both mediocre
How did you
singers.
actually meet?
We were in the singing community. No. We were in the singing community at Yale, which is like kudzu. I don't know if you know. It's an almost like epidemic like problem.
It really is.
Yeah. The acapella infestation.
It's
and
true.
Ted and I were basically mediocre singers,
yeah,
but we were in that world.
Nice guys.
Yeah, that's right. And then we. Right?
Did everybody in this room go to Yale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why did you choose Yale? No, that's a whole.
Let's talk about Yale.
Right.
Do you have a scarlet letter that we can put on you? Just, you know,
Just one?
Yeah.
Yes.
A question for Kate. How did the scripts come to you, and how do, like, I guess this is sort of an obscure script. How did this come across your desk?
It went to my agent, and then to my manager. Lots of peeps, you know?
We had a great casting director in New York who knows Kate and Kate's people very well, and that was the chain.
Did he pay you?
I will answer that. And then we met, and it was pretty instant. And I said in the room, which I think is the right thing for actors to do, because it's a very good script. It was very funny. I thought it was very clever. And I knew that a lot of actresses probably wanted to play this role, so I said, let's play around. Can I read it for you? And that was sort of it.
That was amazing. Yeah.
And the chemistry between us. So that's how. Come, you read, you like it, you go, you meet, you fall in love, you get it, you do it, and here we are.
But you know, it really, in this instance, and there were some instances where, you know, I hadn't seen them perform. For example, Jenna Stern, who's brilliant, I think, as the headmistress, who, you know, has that pivotal scene where she sort of turns the movie. Indeed, she's not here, but deserves the round of applause and abstention. I didn't know her until the audition. Kate, literally when I heard that Kate had liked the script, it was very easy for me, knowing Kate's performance and her voice, just, I mean, forget it. You know, I was like, oh, that's it. So it was just I dare say, a formality. It was very, very nice to be in love with you personally.
Don't stop. Yes.
I went home and I laughed a lot at the movie. But I went
When you were home?
When I went home
Okay.
afterwards, something bothered me. I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Why are people who are spending $30,000 a year on kindergarten, and that means they're going to have an investment for many years, living in the basement apartment on the west side? Why didn't they move to the east side and go to PS6?
You know,
This is where your education is from.
you know what? This is actually you're stumbling on a critical bit of dramaturgy, actually, and I don't mean that in any way facetiously. We had a scene in there where they sussed out a public school, and I screwed it up. It was a moment, basically, for those of you who've seen the film, and for those of you who hasn't, this is not difficult to comprehend. They move to the city. They're confronted with how difficult it is to get your child into a private kindergarten. They, in the finished film, seek out a consultant played by Amy Sedaris, who begins the sort of wacky hijinks that create the film. However, in the script, and actually one deleted scene that we have, where there aren't many, they suss out a public school, and the scene really didn't work. I basically played the public school out to be, graffiti stained and nightmarish, and something that no thinking person would want to be. But it was, first of all, it was false. Obviously, the public schools, in New York are strong, and ultimately, I felt like it was just sort of slowing down the story. I took the risk of people like you, thinking Yale people, having a structural problem with the film, but there is, in the finished film, a pretty clean flow, dramatically, from Bonnie, who plays the protagonist, the wife, saying, we have a problem, we're stuck, let's go see the consultant. Wherein, in the script, we did take that beat and suss out the public school. Had the execution of the public school scene been a little bit better, I probably would have included it in the.
But why couldn't they afford a better apartment?
Well, I think it's a movie. Relax. No. Part of the element. Thank you, Kate.
Do you have a place they could use?
Well, I have a daughter who's a real estate agent.
Yeah, this is not an insignificant thing that we discussed and decided to basically shelve. This element of the storytelling. We imagined that they came into a bit of money when Neil's fictional relative died. This was the apartment that they could get on very short notice. It's a satire, so we're overplaying their straits, in this basement apartment. I would say that your objection is certainly a valid one, and it's something that a more realistic take on the subject might actually delve into. I had very little interest in the realism of the subject, and I wanted to sort of get to the comedy.
Yeah.
You have a $3.5 million budget, which is pretty tight, and you have an excellent cast and multiple locations, it sounds like. And, that's a very big hidden expense of a movie, is just moving, everything. And I was wondering what you did to save money, whether it was concessions from the city or just clever things that you did to keep it, on budget.
You know, I have to say, from my point of view, it was very lavish. You know, I had never worked on any kind of production of this level before, so there was no belt tightening from my perspective. From Kate, certainly. You know, I have been doing pretty much, you know, lower budget, and I mean lower budget, you know, endeavors my whole career. I've written screenplays for movies that envisioned significantly larger budgets but never came to fruition. So this, to me, was a Rolls-Royce experience. You know, we had a magnificent production team. I wanted for nothing creatively. And so I think someone else in a different position.
The organization was superb.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
You know, I've worked with huge budgets, and when it's not organized, it's no good. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, you know what? Let me give a quick shout out to Declan Baldwin. I don't know if any of you have worked with Declan, who's one of our producers, co-producer, based in New York. Young filmmakers, if you have the means to work with Declan Baldwin, work with Declan Baldwin. He's the man who gets the trains on time. And had we not had Declan Baldwin, you know, like this is to me a little anecdote about Declan that'll sort of sum up this guy. And you need, you know, at least one of these people on a film to basically support all of us creative freaks. But in the meeting where we were interviewing him with our financiers, so Declan had not yet been hired for the film. We were describing the film as a $3 million project that we had not yet raised. The people who were sitting at the table would ultimately write all the checks out of their own pockets, but Declan sits down in the interview, and the first thing he says is, yeah, you're going to need an extra $500,000. You're going to need $3.5 million. Just, you know, no, forgive me, but no bullshit, and just completely knows the trickle of how those dollars turn into bodies and how those bodies turn into functions. An amazing, amazing man. There are many men like this in the film business, and women, but I'd never worked with one before, and that is the reason why you had a decent experience on this budget level. It's amazing.
Is he pretty much a UPM, a unit production manager / producer?
He is essentially a UPM turned producer. So he is so good at the UPM, you know, boots on the ground stuff that he now, you know, basically has UPMs working for him. So he brought in the keys, and they were honestly just equally remarkable. Declan's in training, and they were amazing. You know, the 4 or 5 people who are really the, you know, make everything just sort of materialize in front of me. It was amazing.
The other Elizabeth.
The other Elizabeth. No, she's the other.
So two unrelated questions. One is, I've written my first screenplay, and everything I've heard is that the first big hurdle is finding an agent. And there's lots of like online things you can post your screenplay and blah blah blah. But your advice on like how do you get that agent? What do you do next now that the screenplay is written? Totally different question for Kate. I've followed your career since Ryan's Hope.
Yeah.
So do you look back on that and cringe, or
You're looking very well, Heather.
I guess in terms of that as your big break and...
Yeah, it was. And what's your question?
My question is, like, do you think that if you look back on that and you're like, wow, that was great, or do you just like go, oh my God?
No, it's funny, we were just having dinner with Claire Labine last night, who was the producer and head writer who created it. And of course, it was my first break. And without that, I don't think I would have had the career that I had. She was an extraordinary character, beautifully written. And Claire went to Yale. It all comes together. More to can I answer to the screenplay thing? Find an actor. Find an actor who's got some stature, and the actor will take the screenplay to his or her agent.
Fully agree.
That will expedite the process.
Yes, agents, and if there are any agents in the room, I semi-apologize. But I think that largely the agent will react to the momentum that you create yourself. And I think that is, without question, the best kind of momentum that you can create.
And it's happening more and more.
Yeah.
You have a screenplay, you say?
I do.
There we are.
There's actually two. One is not yet finished, having been written, but there's a fabulous part in there for you.
I will be seeing you in the bar.
Get your checkbook.
Yeah, you were talking about sort of structurally going after farce like A Fish Called Wanda. Dramaturgically, like what are the other kind of structural influences that you looked to?
Tootsie.
And what were you trying to summon with the screenplay?
What was I trying to summon, did you say?
Yeah,
It's
I mean, the
beautiful.
elements of farce and how these things to be. I'm a dramaturg.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, muse. Summon money. That's right. That's Kate. Let's see. Okay. Tootsie and Fish Called Wanda. I like to say the farces of Preston Sturges because it sounds classy. And I love Sturges, but the movies that we really, really watched again and again were Fish Called Wanda and Tootsie, which we already were watching again and again anyway. We took those films apart and put them up on the wall like charts. And I recommend this to any screenwriter. And you know, literally, it's like patterns emerge. You know, I'm definitely a believer in thievery and outright imitation and ripping off the very, very best. You know, essentially, you know, what those two films have in common structurally is keeping the lie aloft. And that's what we really tried to do in a way that, you know, the word plausibility is obviously a very loaded and tricky one, and we all, you know, say, you know, I didn't buy this in the movie, and you have this, you know, suspension of disbelief, what have you. In our opinion, you know, we wanted to put this woman and the central lie of this film through as many twists and turns as we could while maintaining a certain element of plausibility. It's not impossible what could happen, and there's a certain element of metaphorical truth about what they go through because we see the extent that people, you know, go to get their kids into these schools. So that's a tough question, and I feel like I could, you know, blather on and on for a while. But certainly I would, you know, in terms of, you know, it sounds like you know, you're a student of the craft. I would certainly recommend taking apart your favorite movies, the movies that really occupy your soul, and seeing how they did it mechanically. You know what I mean? Like Michael meets him, Michael tells this lie, Michael does that, enter this person's character. Put them up on the wall. They are ultimately, you know, created out of you know, hard work and banging and banging and banging and banging and banging, and that's pretty much what we did.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's really a way to communicate the tone of this film to those who haven't seen it without watching it, but I'm sort of curious about when it came to you, or at what point in the process you knew this is going to be a sort of joyfully bawdy, very R-rated comedy, and maybe what are the challenges in doing that, and maybe what can you do about it?
You know, it came from the gut, and you know, again, you know, you set out to imitate these things, Tootsie and Fish Called Wanda. Now, many of you who have seen the film may think, wow, I don't think that movie resembles those movies in the slightest, and you're absolutely right, according to you. You know what I mean? And so what we were aiming for and what we pulled off may be two totally different things. And so in a way, I have no idea how to describe the tone of the movie either. You know, the sort of movie is what it is. We were, I would say, just basically sort of going after that farcical structure of the lie, you know, held aloft, like I said, which sounds pretty. On the other hand, you know, I would say that the most, you know, key element in any kind of, you know, writing endeavor that I've taken on is, you know, your sort of gut feeling after watching a trillion movies and doing you know, as much homework as you possibly can to sort of understand how to tell a story. And boy, there's a longer answer that I could get into, but I'm going to cut myself off.
I just have a really kind of quick nerdy question, which you don't have to answer in detail, but
I just saw Tootsie recently, and actually I was surprised how little material comes after the lie is exposed. I think it's only like 3 scenes, which is not typical. You'd think that you'd actually have to have 20 minutes, maybe half a dozen scenes or more after that, really a whole sequence or even 2. So I'm wondering, when you do that process of putting this film up on the wall, do you see both strengths and kind of shortcuts or even possibly weaknesses in these films? And in particular, did you notice that same thing in Tootsie?
Well, there are no weaknesses in the end of Tootsie. I mean, I honestly, you all know the end of Tootsie when Dustin Hoffman comes down the stairs. It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, really.
Brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they had the AFI recently did like the best comedy of all time, and I think it was just behind Some Like It Hot. I mean, it really is.
It's a great film. I'm not saying it's flawed.
Is that good? And then the final scenes after that are all of them heartbreaking and beautiful, right? Hoffman with Charles Durning, and then the incredible scene on the sidewalk between Hoffman and it's an amazing scene with the ring when he gets the ring back. He gets the wedding ring back. I can't marry you, and that's utterly and completely heartfelt and sincere.
I think the point I was making was...
I don't give a shit about my movie. Let's talk
I think the point I was making is the film works perfectly.
Yes, it does.
But then when I looked at it closely, I was actually surprised that it works perfectly with only those 3 scenes after the lies.
Well, okay, here's okay.
Well, the jig's up when the lie's up, right?
Yes, and here's something remarkable about that movie. Another remarkable thing about it. Okay. The storylines, and there are 6, 7, 8 of them. I mean, you've got in Tootsie. I mean, look, you've got Dabney Coleman has an arc. The fucking show producer, what's her name, has an arc.
Yes.
Terry Garr has an arc. When all the reactions, just cuts that the moments have when he comes down the stairs, all of the stories climax like that. So the storytelling is all there, and you don't need full on. I mean, you needed a full scene between Hoffman and Durning. You need obviously between Hoffman and Jessica Lange. But the Terry. As soon as the lie is exposed, because the lie is the subject of the storyline between Hoffman and all of the other supporting characters, and all of their reactions are different because they're all, it's a magnificent script. I mean, it's really good. Yeah, it doesn't get any better than that. So I dare say, because you know exactly the cuts I'm talking about, that is one nutty hospital, as the capper, right? Bill Murray's capper at the end. But you have Terry Garr, the show producer. The show producer's I'll be damned. Right? I mean, it's like it was yesterday. If you remember that in the control room, right? Beautiful moment. So you get it all out of it, but it's the work that has gone into building all of those moments is what makes that thing. I mean, really, I like it.
Sir. Yeah, thanks. I wonder if you could tell us a bit about who in your team is responsible now pivoting to the business side with marketing this movie, trying to recoup for your investors. Have you got a business plan? Could you give us a little bit of that and tell us, do you expect to recoup with a theatrical release? Can you only recoup if you sell DVDs? Are you trying to sell to TV networks? Is that where one gets back $3.5 million? How will this all come together so that these producers in Philadelphia will want to do your sequels?
Yeah, no doubt, right? That's in the Brightest 2, the Tanaka bum scenes. The Revenge of the Tanaka bum scenes. I'm not a business mind. If you're an independent filmmaker, you have to learn as much as you can to be able to converse in these topics because you need to be able to sit down with the money people. Here's what I know. On the independent and the Hollywood level, the way that movies actually make money is in the home video format. The theatrical campaign, whether you're talking about Avatar or Little Miss Sunshine or our film, is essentially, from an economic standpoint, marketing. It's as expensive to get the film out there in theaters as you can expect to gross. If not, take a loss from. Terrible sentence. But anyway, our approach is essentially the same, indeed, as a Hollywood film, which is to say that the theatrical efforts that we're going to have are going to be exhausting and expensive and kind of individuated. As I mentioned yesterday, let me quickly digress. A lot of our theatrical events are indeed going to be sponsored and organized by people such as yourself. I had many people come out of the woodwork yesterday. I don't mean to say that you reside in Woodwork, but a lot of people are coming forth to help bring the film to their cities. And the bottom line is that you know, we're going to hustle the film into as many theaters as possible. There will be a traditional theatrical stand of the movie in New York and LA at least. It's still an evolving plan. But then ultimately, on August 16th, the film will be released video on demand, DVD, it'll be in Walmart, Target, Best Buy, what have you. It'll be on iTunes, it'll be on Netflix, it'll be on cable on demand and all the major cable distributors, and it'll be internationally released digitally as well. That's how we make our money back. So really all of our efforts are essentially leading up to the promotion of the DVD and home video release. Will we make $3.5 million? Now it's actually less because the state of Pennsylvania paid us $700,000 to film there, which is why we filmed there. And and so now we have to make, you know, 2.8 and change or more, you know, and films do perform at that level in the home video market if they're well regarded, if people basically tell other people to do it. Yes, sir.
Josh, I'm very sorry, but I have another business question.
Please, yeah, I know I'm sweating, right? Yeah.
So, it sounds as though, from what you're saying, the theatrical release really is a way of marketing, that you're not really making much back from that. So, are you perhaps considering having a model that's similar to the Freakonomics movie, where you release the movie, and this might work better for documentaries, but where you release the movie on iTunes at the same time, or even before you have the theatrical release? Yes, it might cannibalize a bit on the theatrical release, but you could just make it smaller and have something that actually brings money in to do a lot of the marketing and advertising. Yeah,
you know what, honestly, I think the short answer is yes. And I would say that essentially, you know, essentially the film will become available to all on August 16th on whatever format they like.
But what about the theatrical release? Is it also on August 16th?
The theatrical release, as I'm told, and again, this is still an evolving plan, so the answer, I guess, is maybe. I'm told will precede it. There may be, let's put it this way. What you're talking about is a model that is emerging and in some instances working. From what I've heard, just to cite one example, the movie Client 9 about Elliot Spitzer was a documentary that was released last year. My understanding was that they basically did a premium VOD in advance of the theatrical, which is indeed a really emerging success story for independent film. My understanding was that it made $1 million just in the premium VOD before it was theatrically released, because there are whores in the film. And but we have one too, which is great. She was at the screening yesterday. Anyway, but the point is that I think that we are going to be theatrically releasing the movie throughout 2011, one way or another. So in a way, the home video release is going to, you know, come after and before the theatrical release. We're going to see what happens with the theatrical, to be honest with you. You know, we may get lucky. We're talking to AMC and Landmark right now about, you know, booking a much more, shall we say, traditional multi-city event. Events like this, and quite frankly, if I may, your own word-of-mouth efforts are critical to these efforts. So I cannot thank you enough in advance for blogging about it and posting it on your Facebook page. We're going to have a trailer soon, so you know, if you can post that, that would be amazing. Yes, sir. Follow up.
Speaking of which, what are you doing on social media?
As much as possible. I like Facebook a lot. I'm not a big Twitterer, although I'm getting there just out of the sheer number of eyeballs that are on Twitter, and so I'm forcing myself to be, as you can tell, limited to fewer than 140 characters. Not my style. But I go on Facebook quite often, and I am as witty as I can possibly be.
Do you do all of it?
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter because it's a great way of getting information articles.
Right. Yep.
So I do both of those.
May I ask you how old you are?
I'm 25.
Yeah.
You should check out, we do have a Facebook page. We have about 1,500 followers there or something.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a website as well. And Josh, how many cities are we, the website efforts that have gotten us these ancillary screenings, the satellite screenings, what are we, can you talk about that a bit?
Of course. Yeah. Are you talking about the number of cities that are...
Sort of how that's coming about and how people actually could even play a role?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, Dubuque is a good example, actually. Kate is from Dubuque, and there is a film society in Dubuque, and some of the, you cannot say...
Agriculture's way down.
If you want to make Kate laugh, just say Dubuque. But some people who have been following the movie, in this case because they're fans of Kate, reached out to us specifically because they want to support the movie. They said, we have a movie theater, we have a film society, how can we help? We have had a lot of students and older folks get in touch with us and say, you know what, we're programming our own film society. I don't even have a film society, but I want to get this film into my area because I love Kate Mulgrew. I love Bridget Regan, who's the young actress who accompanies Neil to the sex club and is subtitled Crazy. She has ludicrously passionate fans. And these are the people who are helping us organize kind of event type screenings in their area. Now we have 30 in the works: Madison, Wisconsin, Athens, Ohio, as well as the traditional Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Washington D.C. It's happening now, and it's thrilling. It's very exciting. But if you can help, and some of the Yale alumni organizations have approached me about doing events, further events this spring, which I can't wait. We're going to do a master's tea up in New Haven, which is hilarious.
Do people pay you or pay your expenses to go out to the screenings? Like, say Kansas City is like wild about your film, or so you meet somebody and you're like, come on out. Are they the ones that are paying for the theaters? Are they the ones that are paying for your plane tickets out to the Q&A afterwards? Or are you guys like bearing that? Like, I'm just curious how like the logistics go of going to multiple cities and building this kind of repertoire and creating this hype so that you can build your Facebook thing so that when you send out a message and it's available on iTunes, it only takes a click and $5 for somebody to like watch your film, and then like turns into revenue in the back end. So just curious, how are you going about that financially at this point when you're marketing for private screens?
All right, listen to her. Revenue on the back end.
Yeah, right on.
Right on it.
Who's she working for?
I have a job for you, young lady. The wages are not lavish. Literally, I'm not even, why be coy? Before this panel, I'm like, look, Dubuque wants you. They're probably broke. You're not planning on going back to Dubuque anytime soon. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go visit my brother. I'm like, great, because I mentioned money to them, and they're like, and that's the deal. I mean, honestly, when we have screenings, this is the whole plug, the whole thing is plug, for March 18th and 19th at the Bell House in Park Slope. John Hodgman will be there on the night of the 19th. Jonathan Colton, Yale internet superstar Jonathan Colton will be our opening act, also a classmate of ours. And there's a Friday night as well because the sales for Saturday were extraordinary. So, suffice it to say, I reached out to the Bell House just because I had been there and I saw a great event there. And I said, we're broke, but we have this, entertaining film that feels right for your crowd. We have 4 cast members who live in Park Slope alone. They'll come, they'll support it. Hodgman, Jenna Stern, the Tanaka Blum scenes are a real couple. Kelly Caulfield and Steve Park, they'll come. Can we just do this and Dutch the gate? And they said, yeah, that's our deal. So that's what we're doing in LA. We're basically, saying, we can't afford any kind of a fee. The only talent we're going to have there is going to be local. Same thing in LA. Basically we show them the poster, the fact that, quite frankly, that Neil is in it, that sort of kind of like legitimizes the film. They look at the rest of the cast, if they're film savvy, and they're like, holy shit, this film has a pretty deep bench of talent, aside from the the writer director. And you know, honestly, some of these people are willing to just say, yeah, we'll take this risk, we'll put it out to our mailing list, and talk to the bloggers.
Yeah, one thing on piggyback, and it sort of goes with Harold's comments in terms of how things are being marketed in terms of releases, etc. It seems like the trend everywhere. Everybody, how many people in here are on Facebook? Raise your hand. Okay, so you look at that. And you say, okay, there are gatekeepers. There are traditional gatekeepers who have their ways that you get to them, and not sometimes they're open, sometimes they're not. There's so much power to be marshaled in your connections. And when you have something that people react to, they get excited. They get excited when they can communicate with Josh. They get excited. We have a screening happening in London where Peter Serafinowicz, who's one of the stars of this, who's been in a lot of stuff, he's going to go to it. It happened because a fan was excited about it.
Yeah.
And I think, it's all cycles, and I think everything, it's sort of like, how do you get an agent? Well, you have to have a good project. Well, how do you get a good project? You have to have an agent, right? And so somewhere you have to circumvent that cycle. You have to get in there and pop it, and it's the same thing here. So your connections they have that in them, you just have to find it. And we're all in that process constantly, I think.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, that ties together nicely with your thoughts about how do I get an agent. But certainly, self-created momentum begets other momentum and other passion from other people. If you say, help me, a lot of people will be like, nah. If you say, I'm doing this, then people are like, all right, I'll help.
Right.
If I could just contribute to the conversation, maybe it'd be helpful to a lot of people. I produced an independent feature film last year. We just hit 16,000 Facebook fans last night.
Wow!
And in terms of perks, it's variable. We brought it to some festivals that had a lot of money. The Festival do Rio brought me and 4 of my actors and put us up for 6 nights in a 5-star hotel on Copacabana Beach. That's about the jackpot.
I want one. Why are you up
Have
here?
we talked about the Marriott in Disney? In the morning, they will give you coffee.
It's very good.
Another festival, I went to Madrid, and Madrid can only afford to bring 1 person, so I volunteered for that one and put in a hotel. Other festivals have nothing, and we don't have a budget in our film to send our talent out there, but we'll say, would you like some talent, and what can you offer? Many festivals will have partnerships with hotels, and all they can offer is lodging. But if the cities are nice enough, and your actors want to accentuate their career, they'll go out there and do it. And but other festivals have money, and then film societies will have no money, but just as with Ms. Mulgrew, we've got actors from a lot of different home cities, and they will go to St. Louis because they're from there and they're going to visit anyway. So you cobble together whatever you can. And for us, Facebook is critically important because that also drives our DVD sales.
Yeah. For those of you who have finished films, or just, for you filmmakers, advice for when you have a finished film and you find yourself in our position, what I've found is that there are basically entities who are incentivized to have your content. So basically, these joints need stuff. And they have mailing lists, and they have audiences. So, you get in touch with them. It's a pretty good marriage.
Could I just say that Without a Box, the Without a Box system, which is part of IMDb, is a very efficient way for a filmmaker to upload their film and enter it in a lot of different festivals very easily.
How are we? We have one more question? Oh, sad. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question regarding the creative process. Humor in the movie is magical, and I just want
Oh, my goodness.
When you created the film, did you have a background in comedy and humor? Because it's one thing to have humor at the concept level, it's another thing to have humor at the scene level and visualize the scene level. It's another thing to have humor in the delivery of specific dialogue. And I just wondered, did you have the expertise at all 3 levels, or did you bring in some comedy gurus?
That's funny. Oh, wow. Okay, I would say that's very, very kind, and thank you so much. And of course, it's true. Thank you. I would say that in terms of my own skills as a writer, as a creative person, what I've always done naturally after graduating and taking a lot of classes and watching a lot of movies is write a bunch of dialogue. Like that, I can do that like a musician can just play. I'm a crappy storyteller naturally, and I have had to force myself how to do that. Actually, I'm going to tack on the slightly longer answer that I was going to say before because it dovetails here. The thing that I have had to learn painfully and at excruciatingly slow pace is how to tell a story properly. And without it, you have nothing. If you have that, you have everything. And I find that the dialogue on top for me is the joy, that's the frosting. But I need and require someone to verbally tell the story to, or else I have no anchor at all. And what I found in Michael Yeager, my writing partner on this, is this great kindred spirit with who can call me on my bullshit. The longer answer that I was going to say is that I taught a residential college seminar a couple years ago in Pearson called Storytelling for the Screen. And basically it is a screenwriting course wherein for the first 8 weeks of the 12, there are no computers and no pens and no paper. It's stand up and tell your story. And if you can stand up and tell your story to a room full of people, I'm telling you, everything after that is carpentry and perfunctory. And I love dialogue writing, and I love experiencing great dialogue writing from other people. But to me, the difficult part, and I really think the core of the dramatic craft is the campfire story essence of the thing. And for me, that is really hard work. Really, really hard work. As Stephen King says, you apply ass to chair. That's how you get it done. And the more hours you put into it, the better you will be. That's it.
It's a great image.
I'm going to linger around here. You all have other panels to get to, but if you want to come, shake my hand, I would love to give you my email address so that we can, work together on getting the film out there. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you.